Hello and welcome to the Go Slow to Go Fast Lifestyle Podcast. I'm Kendra Chapman, your host, and I just want to say that I had an amazing conversation with Elizabeth today. I hope that you will find multiple takeaways from this conversation as I did. She's an author of The Homesteader Mindset, a book that will transform the way that you view self-sufficiency, and it'll give you the tools and practical tips needed for a more meaningful life. We talked about how our philosophies intersect in many ways. We also talked about some interesting urban, modern homesteading tips that you can try in your kitchen and your home today, talking about fermenting vegetables, making your own vinegar, vanilla, something I've been doing, and about how it's better to make your own things than buy them at the store. She holds a Master of Science in Acupuncture and Oriental Medicine, and her area of expertise is glowing mental health. She empowers her patients to utilize the 5-element theory of traditional Chinese medicine and the power of habit creation. And we talk about habit stacking, we talk about calm stacking, we talk about a lot of different things. So sit back and enjoy. I hope that you find something that you can take away and start today. What drew you to me was the fact that you're an urban homesteader is just fascinating. So Elizabeth, any Hygge feelings going on this week for you that are bringing you good feels?
We're starting out with Hygge. I like it. I would say there's a number of things that happened this weekend. The first is I made a commitment to creating more of a community in my little tiny area. So since the pandemic, a lot of my friends have left California. California has had a great exodus, and a lot of really cool people that I love and that I've spent years connecting with and getting to know have left. And I decided, as always, when there's a problem, there's always a solution. And so my problem is I miss my friends, and I really like face-to-face connection. I absolutely love the podcast world because you're getting to connect with people and having real, actual conversations about sometimes very intimate things, but there's real interpersonal connection. But there's something to be said about hugging and laughing together and nudging, just touching and being near one another. And so this weekend, I told my husband, hey, I think I'd like to start hosting a dinner party once a month and just making it a recurring thing. And so we had our first dinner party with friends that happened to be back that weekend. That was on Sunday. And I did something quite remarkable. I had a podcaster that's nearby that I met, and I invited her. I invited some friends that I had just met, and then I invited my old friends that have been around a while because they were visiting. And I made a big, gigantic crock pot of chili. And I say this because I wanted to make sure that everything was really easy. Like a lot of times I think that when you say dinner party, you have to have a floral arrangement and you have to get your nails done and whatever, I think it's got to be it's got to be 4 courses. And I was like, no, I'm going to do a crock pot. And it was delicious. It was 3-day fermented beans. So you take water, you put the beans in the water and soak them like you normally would, but you put a little whey in it and it starts to break down and help digest the beans. And then a 24-hour chili. So this chili was really delicious, super easy. I just popped it on the table. And I also worked on the flexibility of letting the party be what it was going to be. So in my mind, we were all going to sit down at the table that I had set, that my husband helped put out, and we were going to have conversations. But my one friend that is coming back from Arizona was like, hey, can we use your pool? And I'm like, of course. And it turns out no one wanted to get out of the pool. So my fantastic friends ate chili in the pool, which I think is hilarious. Like as an East Coaster, you don't do that.
Yeah.
You don't, what? I looked, there were no beans or little bits of food in my,
they weren't messy. That's good.
They weren't messy, but that's what they wanted. And one of my friends came, the podcaster friend came, and she's like, oh, I didn't know it was going to be a pool party. And I'm like, neither did I. Didn't. Welcome to my world. And so there's an ebb and flow of just accepting what is and allowing a playfulness to occur. Like I could have easily been like, no, we all have to get out and you need to put your pants on and your tie on and we have to sit down.
Yeah.
And instead it was like, no, this is what community connection is about. And it doesn't have to be difficult. I will say the planning was difficult because everybody had crazy schedules, but I just said, this is the day that I'm doing it. Who wants to come? And a party happened. And I think the beautiful moments of that for me was getting hugs, was having people pet my dog, and my dog is like super happy to be around them, laughing,
Yeah.
splashing all over my kitchen floor and being like, is that okay? It's so okay. We have a pool house, and just being connected in that in-person way.
Yeah. And, I would think before COVID, we've probably had experiences. Some of us have had experiences like that where we just kind of like, you got a bunch of friends together and you kind of saw where the night would go.
Hmm.
But I would hope that we lean in more now than we used to by opening up our, expectations and just being more flexible.
Yeah.
Because I used to be that person that would just freak out until the moment the first guest would come.
Yes.
And then it's like I couldn't relax because I had to get them situated and I had to make sure they felt good and that they had a drink and they had, I mean, you can't host a party and come across as being all freaked out and frustrated because then people aren't going to have fun.
Mm-mm.
So I like your approach to just, yeah, sure, go with the flow.
I love that idea because, I was raised in a military family where everything happens when you say it's going to happen. I'm from the East
Mm-hmm.
Coast. It's a little more punctual, that culture. And
Mm-hmm.
quite honestly, not even just my guests, but my dear husband, he doesn't need a freaked out wife before the party.
I
And
know.
so I've been learning a lot about number one, I try my best not to clean before a party. Now, I used to
Mm.
clean before a party.
Mm-hmm.
And now I'm like, yeah, they're going to see dog hair in the bathroom and it's going to be okay because I'm happily
Mm-hmm.
married and I'm not like annoying my husband by, we got to vacuum everything. We got to vacuum the walls, whatever the madness is. And I don't even know that that came with age. I think it came with self
Yeah.
reflection. Like, this is not working, being uptight before something that's supposed to be a good event. And then maybe having
Mm-hmm.
to apologize for being bossy or
Mm-hmm.
snippy with my husband because he didn't put the chairs right. Like, instead,
Right.
I'm learning to, first of all, let him be the man that he is. This is something that's come up recently. There's this book called The Empowered Wife, which talks a lot about really respecting your partner and trusting that they know how to do what they do. And like, quite honestly, I met him when he was 36. Like, he survived 36 years without me. He had dinner parties and no one died.
Mm-hmm.
So
Right.
there's that idea of trusting that it's all going to
Yeah.
be okay. And if you come to my house and you see dog hair or an occasional piece of underwear that have flown off at the middle, sometimes you come home and you're just like, I'm getting rid
Yeah.
of the bra. And then
Right.
there's the bra on I do a sweep to see if there's bras
Mm-hmm.
anywhere. But
Mm-hmm.
otherwise, I try not to overdo it.
Right. And that's a good reminder for me too, because maybe, as I think about my future gatherings, I would like to be that person that opens my house up again. I used to be that person. And then I think I took like a 10-15 year hiatus
Mm-hmm.
because of kids. And
Mm-hmm.
now I'd like to go back to that again at some point and entertain again. And I think I just need to be a different type of host. So yeah,
Well, you
that's
got the
something we
hair
can
down,
all
so
kind of,
you're
well,
okay. Like,
thanks.
you've got the great, like, fabulous little flippy hair. So
Well,
that's good.
thanks.
And your kids are you've got triplets, which is a
Yeah.
lot. Like, I could see how you'd
Yeah.
take a hiatus
Yeah.
with a lot of
Mm-hmm.
littles around.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it is it's just I think that, and my book talks about this too, that community is so important. And the pandemic definitely showed me how important it was. But before that, I was kind of sliding, kind of getting by. I wasn't really building community.
Mm-hmm.
I know how to build community. I build it wherever I go, but it wasn't an active action. And now it's like, no, this is essential to my spiritual well-being, to my health. It gives me a sense of belonging. Like you had talked about in one of your podcasts, that idea of being alone at the swim meet
Mm-hmm.
without really
Mm-hmm.
being alone. There are
Yeah.
so many people that feel that, myself included at times.
Mm-hmm.
And so the way that I counteract that is having connections in other ways so that I feel connected just universally. Like, I'm a human, they're a human. We all want to have connection. And then one of my friends says, don't go to the hardware store for milk. So if there's an area in my life where I have to be there, but they are not able to give me that particular in-depth connection, that I
Yeah.
find it, that I foster it, and that I
Mm-hmm.
nurture it elsewhere.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I've seen, I think you and I were exploring this, podcasting world
Hmm.
and meeting lots of people and connecting through a screen. And I think knowing you for a few minutes, I feel like you could probably talk to anybody. I certainly have felt that way at times. But again, we both feel alone. So it's
Yes,
natural, it's normal to feel alone in a crowd, or even though we have great social skills, to still feel alone. It's that emotional intelligence is going to go up and down like a roller coaster. That's just life. I think
that's
that's being
life.
human.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
also this idea of like, I hear a lot of people, well, you're extroverted, you're gregarious. I'm not. I'm very
Mhm.
introverted. I need a lot
Mhm.
of downtime. But
Yeah.
I also am aware, in my 20s, I had that idea that if I could just be an island up to myself, there would be no drama. And it turns out,
Mhm.
take one
Mhm.
meditation retreat by yourself, you will see that there's a lot, a lot of drama and a lot of repeat songs that keep going on. But I remember my first meditation retreat, I'm like, finally, I'm going to get away. It's going to be quiet. And then like 2 days in, I'm like, oh no, I brought myself. Like I still have all this stuff here in my head. And
Yeah.
so when I
Yeah.
realize that, then I am allowed to still give myself those moments of calm, those moments of quiet, and know that I'm a social being. All humans are. And we're
Mhm.
stronger when we are only as strong as our net. And so it's important
Mhm.
to foster that net, to take good care of it.
Mhm. And I mean, you're an original East Coaster. I am too.
Hmm. Huh.
You moved to the West Coast. I moved to the middle of the country. I feel like Tennessee's the middle of the country. Sometimes it's the middle of nowhere for me. And there are a lot of people out there listening from Tennessee. So I love you. No shade, but it's hard to meet new people when you move
Yes.
to a new area. And I kind of feel like all your California peeps are coming here. So you might have some
Yes.
friends in my neighborhood now.
Yes.
But, that I think that is the world is changing a little bit too. We're transient more than we used to be.
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. Most of my family still lives back east, and I can see that there is a strength in staying put because you just are
Mhm.
able to stay more connected to your family. I miss my family. I miss that having a family of origin nearby that just know you.
Yeah.
And I also traveled up and down the coast. Before I got married, I was kind of a rolling stone. So I moved about once a year. But I would just often create community because I was active in a lot of things. I think when you work with people, whether it be in a volunteer basis, anytime you have a mission, that's a really
Mhm.
good way to create instant community. And so for those out there that are like, I just can't figure out how to find community. And here's this guest on Kendra's podcast that's saying community is so essential. How do I do it? The
Yeah.
first thing I would say is volunteer, like show up somewhere.
Mhm.
And if you don't have a place where you can show up, then create it.
Mhm. Because if you love animals, you can go volunteer at an animal shelter and you're going to get the instant huga because they're going to make you feel comfy and cozy.
Yeah.
And you're probably going to have to fight off, the urge of bringing a few home. But that's a way to get involved,
Yes.
Or I was thinking the other day, I have triplets. They were preemies pretty much. They were born prematurely. Most triplets and multiples are. But there
Hmm.
are people out there who just go to a hospital and go to the NICU and hold babies.
Yeah.
So there's lots of different ways that you can get involved in and volunteer. And it doesn't have to be an emotional thing. Like you can go stuff envelopes for a local church or synagogue or,
Hmm.
mosque or, wherever you worship, you could go ask them what they need.
Hmm.
Um, or even go out into the woods, and I'm sure there's something that we can do. I was listening to a podcast the other day called Niche to Meet You,
Mm.
and it's actually from somebody in Tennessee. And she's amazing. And she was talking about how there's a stick nation. There are people out there, they go out into the woods, they find a stick and they put a video out about their amazing stick that they found. And they connect with people all over the world who
It's
go and find
fantastic.
sticks in the woods. I mean, I'm a boy mom, so that's a little
Huh?
bit more relevant to me
Yeah.
in
Yeah.
my life.
No,
Mine
I
are always
love it.
bringing in sticks of some sort. Like,
Oh,
yeah, it's amazing. But I think you can find anything to get involved with if you really look. But I was just going to look up Niche to Meet You real quick by Leslie Eller Thompson. She's amazing. She's
how
pretty
cute.
interesting. Yeah.
Yeah, there's an organization that I love called the Western A. Price Foundation, and it's all about nutrient dense food and going back to
Mm,
ancestral wisdom in terms of food. Talks a lot about seed oils, but also just the magic of butter and real food. And so I decided to start showing up at the meetings, and then I was invited to co-lead, and so a lot of times that's a way that you just find whatever your
Yeah.
interest is and then start showing up. And, the thing about like nutrient dense food, like honestly, I'm not that big into cooking, although I cook a lot. It's not my
Mhm.
thing.
Mhm.
But I'm really interested in folks that have a very healthy idea of how they'd like to live. And so where are you going to find them? You're going to find them at places like the Weston A. Price. So if there is
Right.
someone out there that's like, I'm interested in nutrient dense food, you can find them online, Weston A. Price, and see if they have a chapter in your area. And if not, create a chapter. It's not difficult.
And that's true because you can do that anywhere. You can do that on
Hmm.
Facebook. You could do it I'm sure there's Instagram ways of doing meetups,
Yeah,
creating groups. I mean, if you're not on social, I'm sure there are other ways, to
absolutely.
figure out how to create a group and just say, I don't know if people read newspapers anymore, but that was kind of the thing for a while. You just put an ad in the paper and said, we're going to meet up at this place. So
Yeah.
there's ways to do that. Flyers at a local
Hmm.
coffee shop too. But I know you were going to talk a little bit more probably about your urban homesteading venture and
Yes.
then your background and just, where you kind of started thinking about this around COVID times. Do you want to jump into that a little bit?
Yeah, absolutely. So I became an accidental homesteader. Many of your listeners might not even know what a homesteader is. I know that
Right.
when I first heard it, I thought of a traditional homesteader, which back in the 1800s, I think 1862 or 1865, the government granted 270 million acres of land to private owners. A lot of time the rich got richer, but there were a few lucky souls that got 40 acres and a mule and they built their own house. And then it was very Little House on the Prairies for those that are
Mm-hmm.
old enough to remember those books and that TV show. So they were making their own clothes, curtains, they were fighting off bears with rifles. They had pitchfork, the whole thing. So when I heard the word homesteading, which I hadn't heard that much, I thought, well, okay, that's what people do. They go off the grid and they don't use electricity. And then the pandemic hit. And so, as an acupuncturist, I'm well aware of some of the herbs that we use in traditional Chinese medicine that are great for respiratory issues. And there was a respiratory issue going on. So I go to the grocery store. It's the grocery store that I've been to for years and years and years, and the shelves are empty. I mean, a lot of
Mm-hmm.
people have noticed this at the time. It's kind of funny because garlic and ginger was missing. And like, I don't know if people thought vampires were out because
They
they're
might
probably
have.
like me. They didn't cook a lot. We always had
Yeah.
garlic there, but here it was completely gone. And it led me to be slightly panicked. I came home and I'm like, I'm really anxious about this. And
Mm-hmm.
so the backstory is I come from a family of war refugees. My grandmother escaped communist Russia with her babies, my mom and her three sisters and my grandfather, and they became indentured servants here. The farmer paid for their way, and then they were kind of stuck being migrant workers
Mm-hmm.
until a church, a Russian Orthodox church on the East Coast, paid their faith for their freedom. And so there was a lot of stories of famine. There was a lot of stories about empty stores. There's a lot of stories about what communism looks like when when it actually happens. It's not theoretical. And then
Mm-hmm.
I even went on a school trip and visited the USSR at the fall of the Iron Curtain. And I remember seeing the empty stores, but it was
Mm-hmm.
so far removed from our reality as Americans. Like
Mm-hmm.
we live in a prosperous nation. So when these shelves were empty, all sorts of bells and whistles were going off in my head. Like, this is not good. So I come home
Mm-hmm.
and usually my husband and I have breakfast together. That's kind of our dinner because we're both running around the rest of the day. So we're sitting down at the breakfast table the next day and I'm like, I'm concerned. And he goes, well, we could consider growing our own food. And I just kind of blinked slowly and I'm like, do you know who you're talking to? Like, have you met me? Like at this point, I barely cooked. I did a lot of outsourcing of our food, just like most people who have careers and degrees. Like, oh, well, I'm too busy.
Yeah.
And, I got through grad school so that I can provide for my family. And now I can buy good food and I can buy lots of boxes of stuff, healthy stuff, organic stuff. I'm a holistic practitioner, so I'm not going to be eating junk food, but outsourcing a lot of it. And so when he said that, I thought, well, challenge accepted. Let's see what we can do. Because I do know that the prescription to anxiety is action. And so I thought, well, why
Yeah.
not take some action? And lo and behold, as of today, I have some ginger in my backyard growing. And my backyard, it's funny because I bumped into a patient at the farmer's market. I haven't seen her in a while. She's going to someone else at our clinic. And she's like, "Oh, I saw your book." And then she got like this weird smile and she's like, "Homesteading? You're homesteading? Like, do you know where we live?" And she's like, she even said, "I've been to your backyard before the pandemic." And I'm like, "Yes, I know. It's cement surrounding a pool. Where do you grow food?" And I
Right?
said, "You know what? You got to stop by again because now
Yeah.
when you walk into my backyard, there's still cement around around the pool, but the entire planter that borders it's only like 2 feet wide. That
Mm,
entire planter has maybe 50 plants in it. Some of them are
wow.
tiny trees that I've pruned to be tiny. Like you would never know that
Okay.
my landscaping is edible, but
Mm,
90% of it is. And so this got me started on looking into YouTube and learning how to grow food and going to the garden store and saying, "What do you have that's a perennial?" So for some listeners might not know the difference between a perennial and annual. An annual is what you plant every year. You plant it annually. And a perennial is my best friend because you plant it
mm,
once and as long as you get enough water and shade and sun, it continues to grow forever. So an apple tree is a perennial,
mm,
whereas a tomato plant could live more than one season. Mine has, it's Southern California, but typically you plant it every year.
mhm,
And so when I started learning about planting perennials, I just started looking up on YouTube. And prior to learning languages via YouTube, I thought that YouTube was nothing but makeup tutorials and cat videos. Like that's what I thought this
yeah,
fandangled thing was. Cause I grew up in a generation before Google, right? There was not a lot of that. And then I realized you can learn so much online. You
mm,
can learn how to fix your faucet. I've done that. You can
mhm,
learn how to garden. And so I started looking into fermenting my own foods because my medical background, my medical side of my brain was really excited about like you can increase the vitamin content and the bioavailability of food just by letting it sit on your counter with some salt water. What? And so step by step by step, I kept looking at these videos and they kept mentioning homesteading. So now we get to what is homesteading? What is the homesteading that I'm talking about? Why was my patient giving me side eye when I told her I was homesteading here? Because she's thinking about Little House on the
mhm,
Prairie, just like I
yeah,
was. But modern homesteading is a practice of cultivating resilience through a more intentional way of living. And this has many spokes. It can be reducing the toxic load in your home, building a healthy gut microbiome with nutrient dense food, things like fermentation, dairy fermentation as well as vegetable, growing edible landscaping, and more importantly, connecting more deeply with our own innate resourcefulness. And so this is where I think your journey to share the message of mindfulness and intention intersects with my journey. Because prior to this, I was volunteering for other things. Actually, I was helping a lawyer that was doing medical stuff and I was
mm,
helping advocate for, medical autonomy. And I found that what am I doing? Like I'm helping, but I don't have any expertise in this. I'm a holistic healthcare practitioner. And then when I realized that I had taught myself how to grow food, I taught myself how to create nutrient dense food. And I also took one foot outside of a broken system because our food system is fairly
mhm,
broken. Then I started realizing like, oh, I can teach people how to be resilient. And so
yeah,
I kind of puzzle pieced all of these things together. One was this idea of resilience without fear. And that's why community is so important, right? Because I might have tomatoes, but someone else has got way better
mhm,
basil and they have more room than the cement around my backyard. And then as an acupuncturist, I saw a lot of patients getting better in my clinic, but the patient compliance was low when they went home. And so I took my language learning and the skills that I learned about how to create habits. And you talk about this too, rhythms and your calm stack, which I'd like to talk about. I learned how to create these habits that make discipline not necessary. It is discipline when I get up and you know, pop the fermentation or when I get up and I do 5 minutes of watering a plant that can't get irrigated with the soaker hose. But how did I create that? And that is a puzzle piece that I thought was missing for my patients and now for my readers.
yeah, so much in there that I wanna unpack. I need to learn a little bit more about fermenting my own foods because the only thing I've done so far is have my own sourdough starter.
Nice.
I need to explore that a little bit more. So it's a rabbit hole I could go down in YouTube for sure then, fermenting foods.
And I will tell you, if you want to start very easily, because sometimes listeners kind of want like something they can take home today. What
Yes.
I would say is create a brine. I have a brine that I use for all of my vegetable ferments. It's 2 cups water, 1 tablespoon of salt. And so it's a little saltier than some vegetables need, but I don't like
Mhm.
to have to look up what my brine is going to look like. And when I say brine, that just means the liquid that you put the vegetables in. Brine really is just salt water. So if you take, for instance, carrots, like if you have some carrots in the fridge, you can take
Mhm.
them, you can peel them or not peel them, cut off the tops or not cut off the tops. I mean, the green, you can cut off the green or not. And you put them in a jar. You just stack them into a jar, and then you put the brine that I just talked about, 2 cups water, 1 cup, and it's usually filtered water, 1 tablespoon of salt, and you close it in a mason jar with the lids that pop.
Mm. Uh-huh.
Everybody's got, the
The
pickle
ones
jar.
that yeah,
Yeah, they go pop
yeah,
when you open them. You don't need it to do that, but are you showing
like
us one?
these. Like
Yes,
these? Yes.
that's
Yeah.
exactly it. What's in
I have
there?
onions and a little this is my when I'm sick concoction, so it's just, vodka and onions and a little sugar.
Nice. Okay,
But
nice.
I was like, "Well, I'll pull this one, it's okay."
Very
But,
cool.
yeah.
So
So
yeah,
just a mason jar. Yeah.
you take a mason jar just like that, you fill it with
Yeah.
carrots or any vegetable, but start with carrots because they're really easy. Even
Okay.
cucumbers can get a little mushy, and you want to have a win. You put maybe some peppercorn in there because that's going to help with
Mhm.
antibacterial, antimicrobial. You put the brine in, and let's say you want it to be pretty, you put a slice of lemon in it, and it kind of faces out. It looks so pretty on your counter. Then you
Mhm.
close that mason jar and you put it on your counter, and then morning and night you open the jar and it will burp. It'll go just
Mhm.
releasing some of the gases of the microbes that are eating. So what's happening is, and then after like 3 to 7 days, but depending on how warm it is in your home,
Mhm.
you will have pickled vegetables. And here's the
Okay.
beautiful, I know, so easy,
So you
right?
don't have to can anything. It's just natural. Wow, that's
No,
really
there's no
hmm.
heating. And then you just take it and put it in your
Okay.
fridge. Now, if
Okay.
you're going to have it for some time, because the pickled
Yes.
vegetables will last weeks, I usually take the metal
Mhm. The
top off,
ring.
yeah, and
Mhm.
I put a plastic one on
Okay.
because it just doesn't get gross and like
Yes.
rusty. But for the fermentation, just morning and night. Now, one more
Okay.
tip is a lot of times I put it in like a plate with like a lip or like a very low,
Mhm.
shallow bowl, because every now and then you will put a little too much brine in and it'll kind of cook up and bubble, and you'll open it and it'll spill everywhere. And so you want that little bit of,
Okay.
I have a fermentation station. So I have a fruit bowl
Gotcha.
that's low enough. And then let's talk about some of the things that the fermentation does. Cause oh my gosh, Kendra, you got me started on fermentation. So
I'm intrigued now.
it's so great. What you can do with fermentation is you can now take it as a condiment. You should have a little bit with each meal.
Mm.
Like if you can make just a
Hmm.
spoonful. So for lunch, I'll have a spoonful of my sauerkraut that I make. Sauerkraut is slightly
Mm.
more involved, but not that much. And
Okay.
the place that I would go to learn about fermentation is Artist's Family on YouTube. Eventually I'll make my own, but this is the easiest. You just chop up or even Bumblebee Apothecary is another one that's really good. She has a
Okay.
sauerkraut that she shows you how to
I've
do with
seen that one, I
yeah,
think.
she's fantastic. So, but
Okay.
that's a little more intense. Like with the carrots, you're just putting it in. Now, what happens in this fermentation? Firstly, the root of the word ferment comes from Latin and it means to boil. So
Mhm.
when you pop it open every morning, you put it to your ear, you'll hear it like kind of snap, crackle, popping. And that is the microbes, what back then they thought was boiling. It's the microbes just releasing gases as they
Uh,
eat. So the
okay.
microbes are doing a few fantastic things. Now, the salt and the water doesn't really have the microbes that create, but when you clean your carrot, it still has lactobacillus on the outside of it. That's
Mhm.
why the more local your food is, the better, because it's the microbes that are actually in your environment. So it'll help kind of boost your immune system for this area. That's why they say have honey from a local area, your local area, because it helps your immune system go, okay, this is what I'm dealing with. This is what I need to protect. Then it also increases the vitamin content. And one fun fact for you sauerkraut lovers, true sauerkraut, not vinegar, but just salt and water, is in 1 teaspoon of sauerkraut, you have more variety and more microbes, happy healthy microbes in that teaspoon than an entire 68 bottle of probiotics. So, you go to the
Hmm.
store, you get the refrigerated probiotics. They cost like
Mm-hmm.
$58 and you got to bring them home and you got to sing to them and make sure they're happy. By the time they get to you, a lot of that they've died in transit, but
Mm.
also you're getting more than that in 1 teaspoon of your homemade ferment. Now, in terms of your onions, there's another thing that you can do. So instead of doing sugar, I'd recommend a little honey in
Mm-hmm.
there.
Okay.
Honey has a yeast in it that when it makes contact with a little bit of water, it wakes up the yeast, and that yeast then ferments whatever in it. So if you do
Mm.
chopped up garlic, or even I love chopped up ginger, and I put it in a
Mm-hmm.
jar of honey, and I just kind of turn it every once in a while, and then it's
Right.
good for years. And it's kind of like a
Okay.
cold flu, but it's also really
Yeah.
highly digestive. So
Mm. Okay, that's good to know. We're
lots of
definitely big
ferments.
honey people here. We
Great.
love to have our local honey. Just so good.
Yeah.
What about I make my own vanilla with like a vanilla bean and like a vodka or a
Vodka.
liquor of some sort. Do you have any other? Have you done any of that yourself as well?
I have. So for the listeners, all you're doing is taking some sort of alcohol, putting a vanilla bean in
Mhm.
it after you slit it down the middle to like let the juices flow. And then you have to shake
Mhm.
it every day or so. I have not shaken mine, and I need to start shaking them. And they're
Mm.
just absolutely
Yeah.
delicious. And I would
Mhm.
recommend never getting vanilla flavor extract. Do
No.
you know what that comes from? You're going to
No,
be,
where does it
yep,
come from? I don't get it. My mom says don't get it because she's kind of like the one I go to
smart
for these
mom.
things. But
A lot of times, the natural flavoring that tastes like vanilla comes from the anal glands of beavers. I know.
great.
Like, what? First of all, who
Well,
figured
I
that out?
learned that cinnamon, there's different type. There's like the cinnamon that you think that you're buying is like some bark. It's a bark off a tree. It's not the cinnamon that you think you're getting.
What
What
is
is
it?
it called? What is it called? I'll have to look it up. Yeah, so it's like pure cinnamon is
Huh?
the root or
Uh
the
huh.
root cinnamon, but then there's another kind
That's like
of
pretend cinnamon.
substitute. Yeah, that you buy in the grocery store that is not cinnamon. It's
You got to be
something
careful.
completely different. You do. Yeah, now I'm gonna have to look that up. Okay, so we've talked about fermenting. We've talked
Yes.
about some elixirs
Yes.
for when you're sick, and just I'm sure we can include any of those recipes in the show notes,
Absolutely.
especially the brine that Elizabeth has shared. But in our second segment, our
Yeah.
last, bit of discussion, I know that you've kind of talked about the why of how
Hmm.
you got started with gardening and then what you've made, a couple of things that are kind of your go-tos. Do you have any kind of particular, like if somebody's starting out a garden
Hmm.
or they are interested in starting a garden,
Hmm.
do you have any tips or tricks that would be helpful for them to kind of just ease in and not get so frustrated if something is or isn't growing?
Yeah. And I think that it's really important to go back to the idea of habit creation and doing things in really small, bite-sized, doable actions. Let's say, let's talk about an urban gardener right now, right? My
Mhm.
patient that gave me side eye, like, what are you doing in the
Right.
suburbs being a homesteader?
Right.
Let's say you're living in a high density area, like a city, San Francisco or New York, and you don't even have a porch or a patio. Like you've got a windowsill if you're lucky.
Mhm.
For that person, I would recommend the first thing to do is go to the grocery store and buy a potted plant of herbs. So buy a basil plant and just
Mhm.
get to know what it's like to have a living being in your house and how you can keep it alive. And you can, snip off like 1 or 2 leaves and put it in water and let it sit for 4 hours. And now you've got this wonderful scented water that tastes delicious and you're also getting some nutrients from it. Then you can maybe try looking up how to throw a little basil leaves on your microwave pizza. Like let's keep it
Mhm.
really basic.
Mhm.
You don't even know
Yeah.
how to cook yet. You're doing frozen
Right.
food. Just add a little of the basil there and get to know it. If you've got a bathtub, you can buy some rosemary, potted rosemary, snip off some of it and throw it in your bath or throw it in your shower. And now you're getting the oils from that while you're inhaling. Now let's take it another step further. Now you're living in an urban area. You've had your potted basil plant for a month. You're like, I know how to do this. How do you then create a garden out of nowhere? You have no land. I would recommend taking a walk around your neighborhood and looking for those little patches of ignored land that people have in their townhomes in cities. Like usually
Mhm.
it's near their stoop. Go knock on a door and say, "Hey, I would love to create an incredible herb garden here, and I'll share half the produce with you, and I'll pay for the fertilizer." You
Mm.
and fertilizer meaning like compost. You would be
Mhm.
amazed how many people will be like, you want to make the front of my house prettier? Yes, please." And
Yeah.
like, why wait for a community garden? Why
Mhm.
not just reverse engineer it? Now, for someone that's like, okay, homesteading sounds good to me. I like this idea of a more intentional way of living. However, I don't know that I want to start with gardening. Maybe I want to start with learning how to cook. Then I would
Mhm.
recommend something easy like just learning how to bake a chicken. That's it. Just go
Yeah.
online. It's my fast food for our house is chicken and crock pot meals. Like chili is a very easy thing to do, right? For parties.
Yes.
And so I would recommend picking one corner of the project, something that you heard here that
Mhm.
was like, that sounds great. Or, you know what, Kendra mentioned sourdough. Maybe I want to do sourdough. I will
Mhm.
say that I will probably never do sourdough. And people are like, but you're a homesteader. But I have a great baker at the farmer's market that
Yeah.
makes 3 ingredient sourdough and he's fantastic. And it's
Right.
48 hours to
Right.
ferment. Why would I
You've
make, I
got a
have no
guy, you
desire.
don't need it.
I got a guy.
Right.
Another thing I would recommend is if you're in the suburbs, definitely in the rural areas they exist, but also for sure in urban areas is look into farmers markets. It
Mm.
sounds like that's the bougie shishi thing to do, but actually it's voting with your dollars because I probably purchase about 80 to 90% of my food from the farmers market. And that's how I learned what's in season and what's not in season. I know all of my farmers' names. They know my name. When I wrote my book, I went out and I gifted them all with an autographed copy of the book. And it's another version of creating community. And it's another way to help farmers keep their homes and feed their children. So why wouldn't I do that? And so
Right.
that's one easy way to be of service, but also reap a lot of benefits from that.
Yeah. I mean, just starting with a basil plant or rosemary, you see them in the grocery store. Don't be
Mhm.
afraid of them. Like Elizabeth said, you could literally just buy one, bring it home, and, add it to one thing and see what you think. Just
Yes.
start small.
Start small and you can stack what I'm saying now, you can do as a habit stack. So, for example, you're
Mm-hmm.
like, all right, Kendra said, let's go get a basil plant. I'm going to do a basil plant. You don't need to go out and like stop your whole day and go to a particular store. All you do is you habit stack. You're already going to go to the grocery store
Mm-hmm.
and you're buying the basil plant while you're at the grocery store. So, I really like to habit stack things. And that's why I wanted to talk to you about the calm stacking
Yeah.
because this
Yes.
idea of you can create space. A lot of times I hear
Mm-hmm.
the myths, I don't have time, it's too complicated, I don't have
Right.
money. And
Right.
I think that these myths can be busted when we just do things in 5-minute increments and we don't
Mm-hmm.
step away from what's already existing. So if you have a bad
Mm-hmm.
habit that you absolutely hate, instead of just being mean to yourself about that habit, just add another habit to it. So
Mm-hmm.
let's say you cigarette smoke, right? Okay. So every time you go out
Mm-hmm.
to cigarette smoke, just have a glass of water. When I do dishes, I consider doing dishes a very nasty habit. If I could just get rid of all the dishes ever
I
in my
know.
world,
I
but it's a
know.
habit that's
Yeah.
necessary. So
Yep.
every time I do dishes, afterwards, I do one homesteading thing. Typically,
Mm.
like this morning, I sat down for 5 minutes, listened to your podcast so that I could remember the things that I wanted to remember about what I had
Mm-hmm.
heard earlier. And I just took my dried sage that I got from my garden a few weeks ago and used a mortar and pestle and mixed it up. And that was a 5 minute
Mm-hmm.
habit that I connected to my dishwashing, a habit that already existed. So habit stacking is a great
Yeah.
way to create time.
Absolutely. I mean, think about it. Like, I have an amazing coffee maker. I love it, but it takes a minute to set up. I've got to empty out the coffee grounds. Well, I like to put those coffee grounds in my garden
Mm,
in certain, like I like to put it around my tomato plants. So it's kind of like, it's one of my habit stacks that I do in the morning. And then if I remember while I'm waiting after I've taken the coffee grounds out to the garden or one of my kids have, then I'm filling up the water reservoir, making sure everything is clean. We got enough beans in the coffee maker. And then when I'm waiting for the coffee to get brewed and come out into the cup, I can do some squats, or or sweep the floor. If there's something I'm going to do anyway, why not take that
Yes.
time? And some
Yes.
people might think that's crazy, but I'm just one of those people. I'm like, instead of just standing here and wasting 5 minutes staring at the coffee maker, what else could I be doing?
Yes. And so a
Yeah.
lot of times that's considered found time. Like you're going to just be standing
Mm-hmm.
there. What many Americans do, and I have been guilty of it as well, is we reach for distraction. I'm going to scroll on
Mm-hmm.
my phone while I'm waiting for
Yeah.
the coffee. And will
Yes.
that be a good payoff? And I'll even say, go ahead and scroll on your phone, but tell
Mm.
yourself, well, just before I scroll on my phone for 30 seconds, I'm going to go put the grounds out. And then suddenly you
Yeah.
might realize it's nice. There's sun outside. It's going to hit
Mm-hmm.
your eyes. You're going to create enzymes that you really need for the day. It's going to help your circadian rhythm. Like those are function stacking. Like you're actually stacking
Mm-hmm.
functions just by walking outside to the garden and taking your coffee grounds out. But you made an active
Yeah.
choice that instead of scrolling, maybe you made it difficult to scroll. Maybe you don't have I don't sleep with my phone in my room. I do not want
Mm-hmm.
to wake up and grab that phone. I have a dedicated alarm clock that turns on like the sun. It gets brighter and brighter. And that
Mm.
is what I use. I don't ever use my phone. First of all, I just don't want the radiation in my room, but it's very
Right.
easy if you pick that up, you're going to check and see there's a new
Yeah.
notification, and suddenly
Yeah.
your beautiful coffee ritual has now been relegated to social media scrolling.
Mm-hmm. And then down the rabbit hole you go. Yep.
That's right.
Yeah. No, that's a good point because I, I'm not a school principal anymore. I've stepped away from that role. But previous to that, I made it really clear that like work life was on one device and home life was on another. So I wouldn't look at those messages and then let
Mm-hmm.
it just totally disrupt my entire evening and my sleep.
Yeah.
But I need to take it another step and think about investing in another type of alarm clock because my phone is my alarm. Even though I put it in my bathroom and it's not
Mm-hmm.
right by where I sleep, it's still close by.
Mm-hmm.
So that's a good reminder to think about other ways you can kind of change your routine.
Yeah, because there are times like, let's say I have the phone in my room for whatever reason. I just noticed that the first thing I do is I'll grab it as I'm going to get my water in the
Mhm.
morning. And this is, from someone that has fairly healthy routines, I am just as susceptible to distraction during time killing distractions as anyone else. And that's why
Mhm.
I'm really careful with it. Now, I will say, a lot of times people are like, but I'm exhausted when I get home. Like I don't want to, take the coffee grounds
Yeah.
out to the garden. And I get that. And so a lot of times I'll say, well, do something like a habit chain. So instead of what you were
Mhm.
doing is a habit stack, right? Where you've got the
Mhm.
time, you're waiting for the coffee, you're now going to take that time and add another habit to it. Habit chaining
Yes.
can be something you do before or after another habit. So the example I
Mhm.
often talk about is you get home from work, you flip off your shoes, you sit down on the couch, and I'm just going to watch one episode of XYZ.
Mhm.
And next thing you know, you've watched 5 episodes of XYZ. And instead of making dinner, you ate potato chips for dinner, right? And you're like,
Yes.
I'll never
I've
do
been
this
there.
again. Right, right. I'll never do
Oh
this
yeah.
again. And so instead, you can consider getting an accountability partner while you're in the garage or in your carport. And I've done this before. I've texted a friend and saying, I'm not going to snack. I'm going to rest a little and then I'm going to make dinner. And so you can
Mm.
just say, I'm going to do my one thing, whatever that project is
Mhm.
that I'm going to do just for 5 minutes. And then I'm going to watch the XYZ on TV. And
Right.
you would be amazed at how that changes your perspective. Suddenly you're a
Mhm.
success. You've done 5 minutes, right? Like maybe your
Mhm.
5 minutes is you've made your carrot ferment. And then you sit
Mhm.
down and you watch your 4 hours of whatever that show is. But in the back of your mind, you know that you have a success and you can
Yes.
build on those small successes. And that is the way that we change our life, through little incremental changes. And again,
Yes.
this is where our philosophies cross together once they intersect again, because you talk a lot about this, like these little habit changes
Mhm.
can remarkably set you on a new course for a new life.
Mhm. Mhm. Yeah. And if you end up, indulging and overindulging in something, don't beat yourself up about it. We're all human. We all do
Yeah.
it. So just, start again,
Yeah.
change it the
Gentleness.
next time. Yeah, you've got to be gentle. You've got to give yourself grace
So tell me
because,
about the
yeah.
habit, the calm stack, please.
Well, thinking about calm stacking, you mean like just all the different types of ritual routines of
Yeah.
thinking?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, is there a way that you can calm stack? Like, let's say you're going to come home and you're going to binge watch something. How can you calm
Mhm.
stack it before that to kind of, because sometimes I think that we're hungry for something
Mhm.
that we're not giving ourselves. Like a lot of times I'll see patients that are like love sweets. They have a sweet tooth. A lot of times they don't have enough sweetness in their life.
Mhm.
And so I'm wondering if we
Yeah.
could calm stack some of those needs.
Yeah, I mean, I'm kind of somebody that writes stuff down. I have a
Yeah.
journal, and I really try to set my intention at the beginning of the day of the things I wanna get done.
Hmm.
Because I'm a to-do lister. I'm kind of a type A personality. I like to
Me
list
too.
all my things, but then I'm not gonna beat myself up again if I don't get them all done. It's okay. So I try to pick out the 3 of those long laundry lists of things that I wanted to get done. If I get 3 of those done, then I can celebrate and I feel good and
Mm,
productive. So I'm trying to kind of parlay that into my calm activities as well. So like in the last month, I've really when I wake up in the morning and I do all my coffee stuff, and you kind of know what that looks like. After I've done my coffee, then I go out and sit on my porch and I have my yoga mat and my weights because I haven't done any kind of exercise in probably years. I mean, I had kids 12 years ago almost now. And I'm one of those skinny fat people. Like, I just don't work out. I don't do enough to take care of my body.
mm,
And so I've slowly started building back in some habits of, and I don't know if this is what you were kind of going towards, but where I have my yoga mat out, I have my weights out. They're just 5 pound weights,
mhm,
and one in each hand. So a total of 10 pounds. But I'm slowly building back in 10 minutes for yoga, which also incorporates breathing, which also incorporates that meditation time for me. And I've learned I can't really do that meditation like I really want to do, where I'm really still and quiet, unless I move first. So I'm
mm,
starting to build back in my movement. Could be just stretching down, maybe a downward dog cycle with a warrior pose, and then maybe up like this, and then do it maybe three times, and then I lay down on my yoga mat on my back and I do some weight, movement where I'm kind of getting some stretches in, but I'm also doing the arms, and then I might do a couple of other moves, but no more than maybe 3 different types of
mhm,
exercises for 15 reps total, like 15 times 3. And then I've been journaling. So those are
mm.
kind of my calm stacks that I've been doing the last, I'd say, probably 3 to 4 weeks. And I've noticed I'm definitely feeling better, and I feel like my day starts better. Now, if I'm going to go back into like a really crazy work week, because I'm not doing that right now. I've stepped away from getting up at 4:30 in the morning and getting home at like 6:30, 7 o'clock at night. I'm not doing that right now. But if I were going to shift back into that, I would probably cut that time down, maybe to like 20 minutes.
Mm,
And just like as soon as I get up, spend like 10 to 20 minutes working on a couple of yoga poses, some stretches, maybe one set of weights or whatever, and
mhm.
then a journal, maybe 5 minutes. Like, I think we think we don't have any time, and I think we just need to think about it differently.
I couldn't agree more. I
Yeah.
love that you walked us through that because a lot of people think that everyone has I don't know, the guy I'm thinking of is Huberman. He's this guy that's like, you take an hour a day of every morning, and sometimes that's just
Mhm.
not gonna work, but
Don't
5
have an
minutes of
hour.
writing down your
Yeah.
thoughts, yeah, or
Mhm.
waking up in the morning and just thinking of 3 things that you're grateful for, like,
Mhm.
really thinking about those 3 things
Mhm.
can
Yep.
change your perspective, and knowing I think this is another thing that people are like they're judging themselves, but they
Mhm.
don't know who they are. For
Yeah.
example, if I were to say, Kendra, you've got to just sit down and you've got to meditate for an hour, no moving. But yet you're like, no, my body needs to move in order to
Mhm.
settle. And
Mhm.
you don't find that out until you try. Like
Yeah.
someone's going to be like, you know what? I don't want the basil plant. Like that's not how
Right.
I'm going to start. I'm going to start
Sure.
some other way, but they're looking for those solutions. And you
Mhm.
get to know through your failures, what you
Yes.
might deem a failure, for sure, my failures, I recognize what does not work for me.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
that's it. I mean, I think that's getting to know
Beautiful.
yourself
Yeah.
is going to be the journey, and you've got to give yourself grace, and you've got to take note of what works and what doesn't work, and then just, try again the next day. And if
Mm-hmm.
you like that routine, whatever you've come up with, keep doing it.
Absolutely.
Hmm. Well, I think I have some ideas about fermenting my vegetables. I'm going to try this here. I mean, I've got a bunch of mason jars that I haven't been using for my sourdough starter. So now I can
Mm-hmm.
start using it for vegetables. So I guess I love dill pickles. So I guess
Yeah.
that's essentially what this is. It's just adding it into your, whatever other vegetables you have in
Yeah,
your
you could do
fridge.
dill pickles. You're putting the dill herb in it. So you just go to the grocery
Mm
store, your farmer's market, grab some dill, or if you're growing it, throw it in.
hmm.
It's
Mm
going to give it that dill taste. I've experimented with other things. Caraway seeds make a really nice taste. Peppercorns, I'll throw some peppercorns at the bottom. When I'm busy, they're not pretty, but when I want it to be pretty, just slicing a few lemons and just putting it up on against the side of
hmm.
the mason jar, and then you've just got like this lovely decoration of beautiful things that are
Mm-hmm.
happening. The one
Yeah.
ferment that I absolutely love, it's just amazing, is cherry tomatoes with basil.
Mm-hmm.
So you take cherry tomatoes and then
Mm.
you layer basil and then a layer of cherry tomatoes, layer of basil, and then you put the brine in, same brine that I mentioned earlier.
Mm-hmm.
And it's basil infused cherry tomatoes. It is delicious.
That sounds great.
Yeah, super
I
yummy.
mean, if you've ever had a margarita pizza,
Mm-hmm.
it's similar flavors.
That's right.
And it sounds like this lasts for a long time.
It
Like you could
does.
have this, you have it on your counter for a while, and every night and every morning you let the air escape and then put the lid back on. But then eventually it can go into your fridge and you've got all
Yeah,
kinds of
for
yumminess
weeks.
to,
There's
okay.
You can also do a fermented salsa. Now, this is
Mm,
I'm not a huge fan. Again, I'm from the East Coast, so we don't put salsa on anything. Like, don't even talk to me about salsa on eggs. It's a very California thing. I'm absolutely against it. Thank you.
mm-hmm.
You also
No.
agree. And my husband's like, "What is wrong with you?" And I'm like,
I
"Yeah,
know.
like no, that's like putting ketchup on your eggs. No."
I
Anyway,
know.
but here, salsa is the thing. And so I will
Okay.
take salsa just like you'd make it normally. Just chop up some tomatoes, onions, maybe some green peppers.
Mm-hmm.
You put it in a big bowl. You mix a bunch of salt in it so that it's really salty to taste. And then you put that in a
Uh-huh.
mason jar and burp it. And now in a
Hmm.
couple of days, you've got fermented salsa. So now it's salsa, but it's also got all of these amazing microbes that are going to help heal your gut. And why is this important? Because
Mm-hmm.
our cells are made up of, when you look at a human body, we have more
Mm-hmm.
microbe cells than we do human cells. So
Mm.
they are a big deal. And I noticed
Okay.
that when I first started healing my gut, the first thing that happened is I started sleeping like I did when I was 6 years old. And I'm like, why is this happening? So I went and started researching, and it turns out a
Mm.
lot of the microbes that are not so good for you, that are created from stress and antibiotic usage and processed food, a lot of those microbes are nocturnal. So those little stinkers were keeping me up. They were one
Huh.
of the causes of, for me, it was just I had a hard time falling asleep. I didn't have
Mm-hmm.
insomnia that most people would say. Like, it just took me
Right.
longer. But
Yes.
now I close my eyes and I go right to sleep because I
And
don't
you're
have an
out.
overgrowth of these nocturnal party animals that wanted to keep me up.
So, but there's a difference between the salsa that starts to get fermented in your fridge because you've had
Yes.
it too long. That's not
Yeah.
that's not what we're talking about. We're
No.
talking about making it from the beginning,
That's
right?
right.
Okay.
Yeah, that can actually be dangerous because if you don't have it, so the salt is what stops mold from growing. It just allows
Mm,
enough space for the lactobacillus. Now, there's another fermentation that's really going to rock your world. Kefir. Everybody knows about it. It's actually kefir, but Americans call it kefir. And it's created from grains. And what I love about kefir is that you just take some milk, raw
mm-hmm.
milk, raw cheese, anything that's not ultra pasteurized. The ultra pasteurized stuff doesn't ferment. Please don't drink ultra
Mm-hmm.
pasteurized stuff.
Mm,
Well, if you
okay.
have to do pasteurized, but raw is better. And you
Mm-hmm.
take, 32 ounces of milk or cream, which is actually fermenting behind me. I don't know if you can see it. And you
Mm,
throw the kefir grains in that you get from a farmer or a health food store, and you put it in there. You let it sit on your counter with a rag over it for 48 hours, and
mm-hmm.
it is now fermented. Now, the thing that I love about kefir, and I'm creating a course specifically for this because it's so easy to do, that's it. Then in 2 days, you take the grains out, you wash them in filtered water, you put them in another another thing of milk, and now you've just got continual kefir. It never goes bad.
Mm.
Whereas yogurt, you kind of have to heat it. You have to, it's just a little more work, and kefir is not. But the thing about kefir that's so much different than yogurt is that kefir has certain yeasts in it, as well as the
Mhm.
lactobacillus and the other bacterias, helpful bacterias. And these yeast actually eat candida for lunch. So everybody hears about candida overgrowth. If you don't know, when it's an overgrowth, candida exists in your body. So does E. coli, like salmonella. These things all exist, but when they're in tiny populations and they don't get out of hand, it's when they get out of hand that
Mhm.
they become something called candida overgrowth. And candida has been known to cause cancer, to help tumors grow. It's bad news when it's in
Mm.
overgrowth. It's terrible brain fog. A lot of schizophrenia and autism can be linked to really bad gut. Like what'll happen is an autistic child will have a meltdown, and
Mhm.
parents won't know that it's linked. They'll have the meltdown, then they'll have a gigantic poo because they've been constipated for 7 days, and then those
Yeah.
toxins build up again. Then they have the meltdown again. Then they have the poo, and it's a cycle. Whereas if you can help their guts, you can help with those microbes to help their brain. So kefir
Okay.
is just this amazing powerhouse. And if I could get more people to drink it, I would. And so the
Mm.
course that I'm creating is not just how to do it, but what the medical benefits are behind it and how you can use it for your skin and
Mhm.
for lots of other areas.
Mm. I definitely need to think more about healing my gut because that's something I think there's so many people out there with leaky gut,
Yes,
unhealthy gut, and we don't even know why. We don't even know we have it until it
that's right.
becomes an issue.
That's exactly right. And I
Okay.
hope that less people I was very, very sick when I finally started healing my gut. And I just hope that people can find it before they become terribly symptomatic. But a lot of people are walking around feeling miserable, inflammation, pain, and a
Mhm.
lot of that has to do with their gut microbiome.
Yeah. And so many of us have those, just disorders, autoimmune disorders too going on,
Yes.
and some of it is the gut.
Yeah.
I mean, you might still be predisposed to having an autoimmune issue, but if your gut is healthy, you're going to feel better and you're not going to have the inflammation. So you might not even have those symptoms.
That's exactly right.
Okay. Well, I know I have to let you go soon. I want to make sure I honor your time, but I
Thank
think we
you.
could continue talking for hours about recipes and routines. Okay. So I'm going to put some of this information in the show notes. I'll make sure I put all like your information as far as your website. I can't wait to hear more about your course. I'm going to want to take that.
Yes, cycles. I love seeing them. Lazier way.
It is fast. Awesome. Thank you so much for being here, Elizabeth. Okay.
It was a treat. It was a real treat.
Yeah.
Thank you. I do have a gift for your audience if you'd like me to share
Fabulous.
about it.
Yes, please do.
So we have a habit tracker at my website. It's the Homestead Habit Tracker. And it's not just a habit tracker. It also gives you 3 simple steps for creating goals that are doable. So you
Mm.
can use this for homesteading. You can translate it into whatever else that you're interested in doing. And you
Mm-hmm.
can get that by going to this link, which is www.createwellnessproject.com/gift, GIFT.
Thank you so much. And I'll make sure that's in the show notes too, guys. If you're driving, please don't worry about capturing that right now. You can get to it in the show notes when you have a minute. Okay. Well, thank you again, Elizabeth, for being here. I hope everybody has learned something. And like we said, just take one thing and add it into your practice if it resonated with you. And then if you want to come back to this episode and listen again and try some other things, please do check out Elizabeth and all of her courses and information on her website. And all
That
right.
was lovely.
Well, that's it for the Go Slow to Go Fast lifestyle podcast. I hope you guys enjoyed the conversation. I really enjoyed talking to Elizabeth. So I hope that you were able to take at least one thing away um, from this conversation and add it to your practice. And let us know what you think. Comment on Instagram, Facebook, or shout us out. I'm gonna include all of our contact information in the show notes. So definitely check in and connect because we're both about community, Elizabeth and I. So definitely let us know what you think and how you're trying something out, and let us know how it's going. All right, everybody, take care and remember the light in me honors the light in you. And as you head into the next week, let your light shine through. Go slow to go fast. And thanks for listening.